to the RCMP, and we do have some breaking news for you. After multiple requests from CTV and I imagine other news outlets to the RCMP about whether or not they are investigating the idea that there could be parliamentarians acting as witting foreign agents, essentially. We have received a statement. It's quite lengthy. I just got it into my inbox, and so I'm just going to share the parts I find the most salient with you right now. You can catch the whole thing on our website, I'm sure, a little bit later this evening. The RCMP can confirm there are investigations into a broad range of foreign interference in Canada, the statement says, including matters which intersect with democratic institutions. The RCMP will not provide comment whether there is an active criminal investigation into any parliamentarians. The statement goes on to say an RCMP confirmation of such an investigation has the potential to cause damage to reputations prior to meeting an appropriate level of proof or to interfere with an ongoing investigation. Finally, the statement says, with respect to the information contained in the NCCOP report and what the RCMP knew and did not know at the time, the RCMP is part of the national security community and works closely with partners to combat all types of national security threats. Although the RCMP did not receive information regarding all the matters contained in the report, the RCMP was aware of the broad range of work being done by partners. So no confirmation from the RCMP. They say they will not comment on whether they're investigating the specifics of what has been alleged in the NCCOP report. And of course, the government is saying the arena for doing so is with the RCMP.
Of the committee are concerning, and they should be. As the Minister of Public Safety has said, we have confidence in our law enforcement bodies to do their job. And I am glad that our government has now put forward the strongest measures of any Canadian government when it comes to foreign interference, giving our law enforcement bodies the tools to act.
Deputy Prime Minister, you said that the findings are concerning, and you have confidence in all law enforcement to do the work that they have to do. I guess I would ask, doesn't the public, though, have a right to know who these parliamentarians might be, especially as we approach an election sometime soon, possibly this year, possibly more than likely next year?
Let me just say this. We take foreign interference really, really seriously, and I'm just going to speak personally for a minute. Having worked in authoritarian regimes myself, I take the fight in the world right now between democracy and dictatorship really, really seriously, and I think it's moving to a new level.
I'm going to ask a question from the moderator's chair. It's known that democracy thrives in sunlight, and you've talked about the attacks on democracy. And it's already been talked about that Canadians have lost confidence in our electoral system and our institutions, in part because of this foreign interference debate. Are you not concerned that by not releasing the names of the MPs who are involved and accused of what this committee is accusing them of, that you are further undermining confidence in the system, and why are we affording them that protection?
So let me just start by saying I don't think Canadians have lost confidence in our democracy.
Mr. Noor Mohammed, I'll start with you. Does your government not think it's a big deal that this report alleges that there is intelligence to show that parliamentarians wittingly, quote, assisted foreign state actors soon after their election?
Well, our government takes this very seriously. We were the government that actually set up NCCOP and NCIRA, the bodies that have been doing this work. In particular, the NCCOP report was done as a result of a body that was set up by our government. So obviously, we take this seriously. What's also serious is making sure that we respect our law enforcement and our national security apparatus that are now doing the work that you've just pointed out the RCMP has mentioned. This should not be something that is politicized, should not be a political football. Every political party should be working together to ensure that we're protecting Canadian democracy and that we're ensuring that Canadians feel secure in knowing that their democracy is being protected by all parliamentarians.
I think the point of this report is to say that they don't feel so secure. Particularly, I imagine now that they've learned there could be sitting members of parliament or sitting senators who are acting on behalf of hostile actors to further their own interests against the national interest. I don't think, it requires a conviction to kick someone out of caucus. Are you aware of anyone in your caucus who is among this group of people?
I think the report speaks for itself, right? The report says there are concerns. Those concerns have been turned over to law enforcement.
The report actually doesn't specify that it's being turned over to law enforcement, just in some instances.
So in some instances. But this is the work of our national security apparatus, this is the work of our intelligence agencies. They're the ones that get to decide, not us. This should not be a political game. It is not that. And I think it is essential that all parliamentarians and all parties be in the room for those conversations. You know, we're hearing conservatives say, name names. You said that at the beginning of your report. I think what is important is that the leader of the Conservative Party should get his clearance. He should be in the room to be able to be appropriately briefed, because this is a matter of national security that requires all Canadians to know that every party takes this seriously.
I understand that, and I have questions for Mr. Chong. But in what that your government has said over the past 48 hours would imbue a sense on Canadians that you are taking this seriously. Minister LeBlanc disagrees fundamentally with the overall conclusion of the report, that your government has been incredibly slow to react to the issue of foreign interference, and that has aided and abetted in the problem that exists today. He's been on this program and said, I don't come to the same conclusion. On this issue, all we keep hearing is that it's for the Rcmp to investigate. We don't know if your government has actively sent this information to the Rcmp, whether you're investigating it yourselves, the possibility of members of your caucus being involved. Like, we don't know any of that. Why would we think you're taking it seriously?
Fundamentally, our approach is, and I believe I would argue the approach of any government should be, to trust our law enforcement, to trust our national security apparatus to do the work that they are doing. The second the political actors start to determine what our national security apparatus is or should be doing, there's a fundamental breakdown in that trust. So our obligation as a government is to not only be responsible to empower law enforcement and the national security apparatus to do their work, but to ensure that that work remains independent. And that is what Canadians expect of government.
But the report also says that, like, the people around the Prime Minister didn't even feel it was necessary to share this kind of stuff with him. Like, why did they not feel that it was necessary to do that? And again, does this stuff happen because your government isn't taking it seriously? Is your party aware of this intelligence? Have you seen any of it? And will you name names if members of your caucus are among those?
We absolutely will name names of anybody, any staffer, any campaign worker, any member of Parliament that knowingly or wittingly participates to further the interests of a foreign state to the detriment of Canada. We absolutely will name that person. But we don't know, because the government has this information and refuses to release it. But let's be clear, this report is damning, and it follows on the heels of the NCIRA report. It follows on the heels of the initial report of Justice Hogue at the public inquiry, and all of these reports are coming to the same conclusion, which is the government is not taking foreign interference threats seriously. This particular report, the NCIRA report, stated clearly that the Prime Minister was advised as far back as 2018 about serious national security threats to Parliament. He was also advised at that time that the measures in place were not sufficient to counter these threats, and he was advised to take further action. The report outlines how the clerk of the Privy Council in December 2019 went to the Prime Minister to seek approval for an action plan to protect Parliament. It then reiterates a second time where the National Security and Intelligence Advisor went again a year later in December 2020, and then a third time the initiative was taken up in February 2022. In all three cases, the Prime Minister withheld his approval. And so it's clearly an indication of a government that is not acting on taking this threat very seriously.
And I'm not absolving them of their, of the questions that should be directed to them in that vein, and I think I did direct them to Mr. Nur Mohammed. But when you said the government is hiding this information, today in question period, I heard the Minister of Public Safety very specifically say he would share it with the leader of your party, but the leader of your party is refusing the top secret clearance in order to access those documents. How would that make sense to any Canadian watching?
There is no, first off, criminal prosecution is not the only tool that we need to use to combat foreign interference. CSIS and other security agencies have long advised that sunlight and transparency is a critical tool to combating these foreign interference threat activities. And one way to do that is to publicly reveal the names of parliamentarians that are willingly cooperating with foreign states to harm Canada and its people.
But what if they don't have proof? Like, I understand your point. That's why I asked Mr. Nur Mohammed. But you could ruin somebody's life. You're essentially accusing them of treason. If you don't have hard evidence of that you have intelligence coming from a credible source, but it has yet to turn into the evidence that's necessary to rise to the level of the Rcmp being able to prosecute, essentially, like, is that irresponsible in some way?
If they don't have evidence, if they don't have intelligence, if they don't have information, then of course it would be irresponsible. But when you read this report, it's clear that the government has loads of information about a few parliamentarians that are engaged in this subversive activity. And those individuals need to be named so that Parliament can take action to hold them accountable.